Hi everyone, my name is Rose Visser. I'm an occupational therapist and activities of daily living instructor at Vision Forward Association. This is Cooking Sense, where we explore and demonstrate a number of adaptive cooking techniques and tools that can help you to cook safely using your senses. So today we're going to be cooking and talking about cutting skills. We're going to be making a delicious summer salad while I show you a number of adaptive cutting tools and techniques. Most of the tools that I'm going to be showing you are available for purchase in our store, the Vision Forward store. If you would like more information on the store or on Vision Forward Association, please get in touch with us at our main number at 414-615-0100. You can also learn more about Vision Forward through our website at vision-forward.org. So today is meant to give you just a taste of some of the cooking tools that are available, some of the techniques that are available. If you would like some more in-depth training, if you want some more one-on-one training in not only cooking skills, but also some of our other activities of daily living, how to take your medication safely, how to do your laundry without vision, please get in touch with us through our website again or our main phone number. All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. So again, we're going to be making a delicious summer salad, and I'm going to be showing you some cutting techniques and some tools that again can help you to cut safely. A big important first step when you are getting ready to prepare food or cook in the kitchen is to make sure you're ready, you're prepared. You have your workstation all set up and you have all of your tools and supplies ready to go. You don't want to start the cooking process and then have to run around and search for items. With vision loss, it can take a little bit of time to identify items and to locate items. So I always recommend that right from the beginning, you set out all of your supplies, you gather them, and make sure they're at your workstation and ready to go. So I have done that. I have a lot of my supplies that I'm going to be talking about in just a little bit. I have my ingredients. I have washed my hands. That's a very important first step as well. Anytime you work with food, if you're eating or cooking, in the kitchen, make sure you start out by washing your hands. I also usually keep a little wet towel at my workstation so that throughout the cooking process, as my hands get dirty, I can just go ahead and grab that towel, wipe my hands off. So again, I'm not running back and forth to the sink. So I'm going to keep that at my station. I also have just a little towel here, again, just to dry off my hands throughout the cooking process. I have gathered, again, my ingredients and put them on a tray. This is an important tool. It's a very simple tool, but it can make a big difference for individuals with vision loss. If you set your items and your tools on the tray, it's much easier to locate them and to find them using your sense of touch. So I have my ingredients on this tray, and then I have a number of my tools that we're going to talk about in just a minute. So that's kind of the first couple of steps. We are going to be talking about cutting skills today. So just a quick little note about safety. Make sure you know where your Band-Aids are. People with great vision cut themselves in the kitchen with knives as well as people without vision. So it's just a good idea to know where those Band-Aids are so you're not running around searching for them if you do happen to cut yourself. Again, we're going to be working with knives, so make sure you kind of pay attention to those knives. When you're done using the knives, I don't recommend storing your knives in the sink, because you may forget about them and then go to reach in the sink and cut yourself later on. So I always tell people maybe store your knives right to the right of the sink when you're done, or behind the faucet when you're finished, so you always know where they're at. When you're storing your knives, when you're not using them, it's a good idea not to store them in a drawer that you have to reach into. Again, you may not see where the blade is. Unless you have knives that have a sheath or a cover on them, then you can store them in a drawer. But storing them in a knife block is a good idea. A set spot, a set drawer where you always know where they're at is important. And we'll talk about safety with knives in just a little bit as well. So let's really get into our supplies a little bit more here. I recommend when you are getting ready to cut food, vegetables, fruit items, to have 2 bowls sitting at your workstation. 2 containers. They don't necessarily have to be a bowl, but 2 containers to put your items in. One, I do recommend a bowl for your food, scraps, and your garbage. So as we're cutting up vegetables, we're most likely going to have some scraps, some garbage that we're not going to use. We don't want to just leave those scraps on our cutting board because they may get mixed up with the food that we actually want to eat. So what we want to do is have a separate container that's off to the side of our cutting board where we can put those scraps in items that we're not going to need in. And then we also want a bowl to put our food in that we're going to eat, that we're going to use. So I have 2 bowls here. They're bright colors. If you do have some limited vision, that's something to kind of think about, is choosing bowls that maybe have a contrasting color with what you're cutting up. And having bowls that are nice and big is a good idea. So you're better able to get the items inside of the bowl and not outside of the bowl. So I have a big bowl that we're going to put our salad items in, and then I also have a smaller bowl that we're going to put our scraps in. So I'm going to kind of set those off to the side for now. So again, bowls, containers to put your items inside of. You could also, if you don't have a bowl, a plastic bag, just something that you can put your items inside of is important. So that's important. Another important tool is our cutting board. If we're going to be cutting, we definitely have to have something to protect the surface that we're cutting on. There are lots of different cutting boards out there. I want to show you a couple that I would recommend. If you do have, again, some vision, but your vision is limited, you may want to consider a low vision cutting board. A low vision cutting board is one like this that is black on one side and white on the other. So thinking about contrast, anytime you have opposite colors between the foreground and the background, it makes that item that's in the foreground stand out a little bit more and enhances your vision. So let me show you a quick little example. I have a white onion that we're going to be cutting up in a little bit. I don't want to cut it against the white side of the board because it's harder to see it. But if I flip that board over to the black side, and I put that white onion against the black side, you can see how it really stands out. So that's a little way to enhance your safety when you're cutting your items so that you can see them a lot better. This cutting board, it is tough to find black cutting boards at traditional stores. So that's why this one is nice because it's black on the same board and then the other side is white. We do, again, carry this tool in the Vision Forward store if you're interested in that. So I'm going to set that off to the side because we're going to use a little different board today. This cutting board has some handles on either side that have a grippy material on them. So if I were to set this down on the table, it doesn't slide at all on us. And that's something that's very important, is whatever cutting board you're using, whatever ones you have around your house, use ones that kind of are stabilized. If you don't have a cutting board that has the grippy handles, you could also use a piece of non-slip shelf liner that you can get at most stores. It comes in a roll and you can cut off a little piece, set it down on your table, your surface, and then set your board on top of it, because then that's going to really stabilize your board, make sure it doesn't move around on you. So that's very important, making sure that board is stable, using a board that's not too small. Sometimes people tend to want to just cut in a little small cutting board. And if you have vision loss, it's very hard to tell if items have moved around on you, if they've fallen off the board. So if you use a bigger board, you're more likely to keep your items on that board. So we're going to be using this cutting board that has the grippy surfaces, grippy handles on them. We're also using that shelf liner to really stabilize the board. I just want to quickly show you too, there are other adaptive cutting boards that you can get. This is a special order cutting board, and it has borders on the corners so that if you are spreading peanut butter on a piece of bread, for example, or going to cut something, you can tuck that piece of bread in that corner and it's going to stabilize that piece of bread so it doesn't move around on you. This board also has a couple of prongs on it, so again, for stabilizing food. So you could put your onion, your tomato, apple, whatever you're cutting onto those prongs, and it's going to stabilize them to make it easier to cut them. This board also has suction cups, so you could, again, stabilize your board. So there are tools like this out there too that can also be helpful, especially if you have, maybe not only vision loss, but some physical disability. Something like this could be helpful for you. So that's our cutting boards. I want to talk a little bit then about the cutting tools, the knives, choppers, things like that you're going to want to do some cutting with. For knives, I do recommend that you don't have a huge supply of knives. You don't really need to use a ton of knives. I do recommend 1, maybe 2 different types of knives when you're cutting. The one that I use the most is a chef's knife or a butcher knife, which is one of those great big knives. The nice thing about this type of a knife is that you can also use the weight of the knife to help bring that knife down to slice through items. You can use gravity. That knife is going to be easier to slice through thicker items, for example. So I like to use the big butcher or chef's knife. That's my main one that I use. And we'll talk about some techniques on this in just a little bit. If you are cutting something smaller, you may want to use a paring knife, which is a smaller knife. It does get a little tricky if you are trying to cut smaller items when you have vision loss, because it's harder to hold on to whatever you're cutting. So I do recommend, if you are starting to get into cutting something smaller, like maybe you're trying to dice some onions into tiny pieces, to instead use something like a chopper or another cutting tool versus the paring knife, because the paring knife can be a little difficult to use. So I'm going to set that paring knife aside. We're not going to use that today. But let me show you some other cutting tools that you could use instead of the knives. There are lots of other tools out there. Choppers can be a good alternative to cutting with a knife. Choppers are usually some sort of a container with a blade inside of it, and then to operate it, you either crank a handle, or this one I have right here is a handle on top that I just hit up and down, and it moves the blade up and down over whatever you're cutting. Because it's contained, the blade is inside, it's a little bit safer, quite a bit safer actually, than using knives. So that may be something to consider when you're cutting, dicing onions, cutting things into smaller pieces. Consider using something like this, a chopper. There are other cool tools that you can use. A scissors works great for cutting some items. Things like raw meat that you're trying to cut up for maybe a stew or a stir fry, you can just use a scissors and cut that into smaller pieces. Scissors are nice and fairly safe because you're wearing it, you're holding onto it, so you kind of have a good sense of where the sharp parts are on the scissors. Other items that can work really well for cutting are this thing is a metal scraper or chopper that you hold in your hand, and you just slice straight down, up and down onto the board. That can be a safer alternative to cutting with a knife. Or you could also use a great big pizza wheel. These are nice. I have a big heavy duty pizza wheel. You want to use one that's heavy and big to make sure you can get through items. But if you think about items like bananas and even green beans, cucumbers, things like that, you can sometimes cut through with a great big heavy pizza wheel. And with the pizza wheel, you're simply using a back and forth motion to cut through. So you're not lifting up your blade of your knife. So that can be a nice alternative as well. And again, there's lots of different types of knives out there. Choose the ones that feel good for you in your hand. Make sure your knives are sharp. That's really important. If you are using a knife that's too dull, you're going to have to use more of a sawing motion and really crank away when you're trying to cut through something. And you're more likely to slip, hurt yourself. So make sure that your knives are nice and sharp. That's very important. So that's a little bit just about knives and cutting tools. Other kind of more adaptive tools that you might consider, a cutting glove can be very helpful. Cutting glove, if you say you used to cook a lot and then you lost some vision and you're a little bit nervous about getting back into the kitchen, a cutting glove could be helpful. And how this works is It looks like a traditional, like those magic gloves that maybe you get at Walgreens or places like that in the winter time. So you wear it on your hand and it fits very comfortably like a normal winter glove actually. But it is interwoven with stainless steel. You can't tell, you can't feel it. It doesn't feel like there's metal in here, but there is. So how this can work, it goes on the hand, mainly on the hand that is holding onto whatever you're going to be cutting. So when you're holding onto, say, an onion or whatever you're cutting, you always want to curl your fingers, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. So you're curling your fingers, holding onto that onion. If you are getting ready to cut something and you bump those fingers, you're not going to cut yourself because you have the nice cutting glove. If you really, cranked away, you might be able to get through the glove a little bit, but it's so easy when you don't have the glove to just, not know where that blade is and nick your finger and hurt yourself. So it adds a little bit of additional security and safety when you are cutting. I do recommend it if you are kind of nervous about cutting, you haven't cut in a while, maybe consider getting one of these. Again, we do sell these at the Vision Forward store. You get a 2-pack, so just give us a call if you're interested in getting those. Those can be very helpful. They also just in general protect your hands. So if you are, wanting to just work in the kitchen and you're messing with a lot of food and you're nervous about textures, the gloves can be helpful for that. Easy to wash. You throw it in the washing machine and dryer and it comes out nicely. So that's the cutting glove. Another thing that we are going to be doing today is peeling vegetables, carrots, cucumbers, things like that. You do need to most times remove the peeling on them. So there are some adaptive peelers out there as well. This one is called a palm peeler. So how it works is you wear it on your finger, kind of like a ring, and the blade fits in the palm of your hand, on the inside of your hand. So traditional peelers, we're holding onto with our hand and that blade comes out off of your hand. So if you can't see real well, you kind of don't know where that blade is. So again, it can be easy to hurt yourself. So the blade is right in the palm of your hand. And when you're going to peel something, you're going to be holding onto your vegetable. Again, we'll demonstrate this in a little bit. And you just swipe down with the peeler. And so you know exactly where that peeler is. You get some good feedback because it's right in your hand. So again, we'll demonstrate that in a little bit. I actually bought one of these and I use it at home all the time. My son likes to use it when he's helping out in the kitchen. So it's a handy little tool. Again, if you're still kind of nervous about, cutting yourself, there are some finger guards that can be very helpful. This is a little simple piece of plastic and it fits around your fingers. Again, the hand that's holding on to what you're going to cut, it protects the front part of those fingers. So you still want to curl your fingers when you're when you're getting ready to cut something, but that piece of plastic is going to really protect you if the knife gets too close to those knuckles. The knife is going to hit the guard and not your knuckles or your fingers. So just some added protection. Again, if you don't have the gloves and you prefer to use something like this, it can be helpful. I do prefer the gloves over this little guard just because the guard can be kind of hard and bulky. So that can kind of interfere with the cutting process. So that's that. And then one other thing that I'll show you before we start getting into the techniques and actually cutting up some items and preparing our salad. I wanted to show you a tomato slicer. So slicing tomatoes can be very difficult to do for anyone, but also if you have some vision loss, it can make it tough. Tomatoes have that interesting skin on them. It's sometimes kind of hard to get through that. And then on the inside, they can be firm, but they can also be a little bit juicy. So that can make it just hard to cut. And especially if you're trying to slice tomatoes for, say, a sandwich or something like that, it can be very tricky. So this tomato slicer, it's kind of an interesting tool. So it's a piece of plastic with some grippy surfaces on the bottom. So again, when you're setting it on your cutting board or on the table, it's not going to move around on you. So that's nice. And then it has these little parts that kind of go together, like as if you're getting ready to pray with your hands, where you bring your hands together. That's kind of like how this tool looks. So what you do is you pull apart the little prongs, and you put your tomato inside. and then you let the tool close around it, so it's kind of encasing the tomato. And then there are openings that you can feel all along the piece of food, the tomato. So all you're doing then is using your sense of touch to slice through. So what I tell people to do, and we'll demonstrate this cutting technique in just a minute, when you're slicing something, if you are left-handed, if you're right-handed, if you're right-handed, hold on to the item with your left hand and come at it from the right side. And we'll demonstrate this tool or this technique in a minute. If you're left-handed, hold on to the fruit or the vegetable with your right hand and come at the fruit or vegetable with your left hand. So when you're using the tomato slicer, it kind of works the same way. You would kind of hold on to the tool with your left hand just to kind of stabilize it a little bit. And then you would come at the tomato and the tool with your right hand and just tap it until you can actually feel it. And then you'll bring the knife in and you'll feel these little openings. And all you do is slice right down and just kind of keep moving your hand to the left. Wherever you feel an opening, you just slice all the way down to the bottom. So you're using your sense of touch. You're not using your sense of vision. You're using your sense of touch to just feel where those openings are. And then by the time you reach to the left side, you will have sliced through your tomato with some beautiful, nice slices. We're not going to demonstrate that with an actual tomato today just because we're not going to use that type of a tomato in our salad. We're using a different type. But again, this is a tomato slicer, can enhance your safety when you're trying to slice through something. So that's a quick little overview of some of the tools that are out there. Again, those tools are available for purchase in the Vision Forward store. All right, so let's get started with actually making our salad. So I'm going to talk about the ingredients that we're going to use, and then we'll practice some techniques. We are going to be using a white tomato or a white onion. You could use any type of an onion. Red onions work really well. They have a good flavor. Yellow onions, whatever kind you want. So we're going to be showing you how to cut something like that's round and unstable. We're going to show you how to do that. I am also using some cherry tomatoes, which are just some small ones. These ones work nice because there isn't really any cutting involved, and they taste delicious. They have a good flavor. So we're going to be adding those to our salad. We're also going to be slicing up a cucumber. So I'm going to show you again that slicing technique that I was mentioning earlier. We're going to peel it first, and then we're going to slice through it. And then we also have some fresh herbs. This is just Italian parsley. You could use cilantro, you could use dill as a good ingredient to add. Just some of those fresh herbs really add a nice flavor to your salad. And then we do have some other ingredients. We're going to add some cheese. I'm using some feta cheese, which is very easy to open up the package and just sprinkle on your salad. But you could use any type of cheese or no cheese if you don't like cheese. That's a nice thing about this salad. You can add whatever ingredients you want to it. We're not putting lettuce in this salad, so it's kind of a different type of a salad. We're putting more like the fresh vegetables in this salad. I'm also adding some chickpeas or garbanzo beans. That just adds a nice little crunch, a little bit of protein, adds some good flavor to the salad as well. That too is optional. And then we'll be adding a simple dressing of vinegar and olive oil to dress up the salad a little bit. So we have all of our ingredients. Like I mentioned, we've prepared them. We have them on our tray. What we're going to do next, which I've already done this step, is we want to wash our produce. Sometimes you get produce, a salad in a bag, for example, and it says it's been triple washed. I always wash any type of produce that I get from the store just to be safe. And a good way to do this is to put your produce in a bowl or a colander and then bring it over to the sink and keep it inside of that colander or bowl while you wash it. Again, containers are great to use because if items are inside of a container, you can use your sense of touch to feel them, to identify them. So again, I've already done that. I've washed my parsley, my tomatoes, cucumber. I've washed all of those. The onion we don't have to wash because we're going to be peeling that outside layer off. But just the items that you're going to actually be eating, you want to make sure that you wash those. So we've already done that. The next thing we're going to do is work on our cucumber. So I want to show you that peeling technique that I mentioned earlier. So we have our cucumber. It has kind of that waxy coating. Sometimes if I get cucumbers from the farmer's market or the ones I grow in my garden, I eat the peeling because it tastes so delicious. But the ones that you get in the store have kind of a waxy coating. You don't necessarily want to eat that coating. So what we're going to do is we're going to peel it. We're going to use that same technique of peeling with the adaptive peeler. I'm going to put it on my finger like a ring. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of prop the cucumber up, not straight up and down, but maybe at an angle. And then I'm going to start at the top of the cucumber and just move my hand down over the surface of the cucumber down to the cutting board. So I'm just using one big strong motion, and I'm going to use my sense of touch to feel it if it's peeled. And I can definitely tell the difference between the surface that's peeled and the surface that I need to peel yet. So I'm just going to use that same motion and keep rotating the cucumber and just peel those peelings right off. And it's okay if you miss a couple spots, because what we're going to do is kind of feel it on after we're done and see if we've missed spots. If you have missed a couple spots, that's okay. That's not going to hurt you to have some of those peelings. So I'm just kind of feeling, and I can feel that I peeled most of it, except for some at the bottom. I'm going to kind of work my way around. Use a nice motion. Don't be in too much of a hurry. In general, with cooking and preparing food in the kitchen, you don't want to be in too much of a hurry. That's when accidents happen for both, people with vision and without vision, is when we're in a hurry. So I'm just peeling, working my way around, and then I'm going to take my peeler off and then just feel this. And I can feel, and again, we've washed our hands, so it's okay to use our hands to feel, and I can feel most of it is nice and peeled, and it smells delicious. So what I'm going to do then, I'm going to set that cucumber to the side. I'm not going to start slicing it yet, because what I want to do is feel those scraps, and I want to get them off my board, because again, I could mix those up with the pieces that I'm cutting. So I'm going to find my scrap bowl, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my scrap bowl to the left of my board and my bowl that I'm putting my salad in to the right. You don't want them next to each other because you could easily get confused. So scraps go on the left and then the salad goes on the right. So I'm going to feel those scraps. I'm going to find my scrap bowl and put the scraps inside of. Just a little tip when you're putting items inside of a container or a bowl, use your free hand to find where you're going first and then bring the scraps over to that free hand. That's so that you know, so you don't spill the items outside of the bowl. So we have our scraps off of our board. What we're going to do next, I'm going to move my peeler. The two end pieces of the cucumber we're not going to use, just because they have the little end pieces. They wouldn't taste as good. But let me show you that slicing technique that I was talking about. So I'm right-handed, so my left hand is going to hold on to the cucumber. That left hand, I'm going to curl the fingers slightly. You don't have to curl them too much, because then that's hard to hold on to the item, but very slightly so that those fingertips are tucked in. That's going to keep you safer. So I'm going to find where I'm going to make my first cut. So that curled, the hand with the curled fingers is going to tell you where you're going to make your first cut. So if I can't see, all I'm going to do is find the right end of the cucumber. Once I find the right end of the cucumber, I'm going to move my fingers on my left hand slightly in to where I'm going to make that cut. Then I'm going to grab my knife with my right hand. You don't ever want to just start slicing down. What you always want to do is bring that knife in until you can tap it against the side of what you're slicing. If you just start slicing, you might be slicing over the top of your fingers. So again, always bring that knife in from the right side and tap it against what you're going to start to cut until you can actually feel it. So once I have the right side of that cucumber, then I'm going to bring the knife up slightly until I can feel the knuckles on my left hand. Once I can feel that, if I want to, I can move my left hand back a little bit to the left, or I can keep my fingers right where I'm going to make the cut. Your fingers are curled, so they're going to be safe as long as they're curled. You always want to tuck in your thumb as well. People tend to forget about the thumb. The thumb sticks out, so make sure you curl your thumb as well. So now I found where I'm going to make my first cut. With this type of a knife, the butcher knife or chef's knife, you really want to try to get the point of that knife down, because then that's going to help you. The weight of the knife, again, is going to help you to slice down. It's a little bit harder when the knife is just up, and then you have to use more of a back and forth sawing motion, which can be a little bit tricky. So we have where we're going to make our first cut. I'm going to put the point of the knife down, and then I'm just going to slice right down. And I'm going to slice all the way down until I can feel the board. And then another thing that you should get in the habit of doing is, once you slice down, move your knife to the right, because that moves away the vegetable or whatever you're trying to cut. So then once you've made that cut, remember this is the end piece that we don't want to keep. What you could do is set your knife to the right of the board and then feel for that little piece that we don't want and throw it in your scrap bowl. All right, so let's do some more slices using that same technique. So my left hand is going to find the end of the cucumber. I'm going to move it into to my next slice. Bring the knife in from the right, and then just bring it up. Get the point down and slice down. Sometimes the vegetables will stick to the side of the knife, and that's okay. You just have to be aware of that, so that when you're trying to search for your items, that you search the side of the knife as well. But we're just going to slice. We don't necessarily have to remove those pieces at this time. Get your point down. Keep your fingers on your left hand curled. And these are round pieces, so sometimes they will slide around on you. And just know that. So when you're doing you're searching with using your sense of touch afterwards, you want to make sure that you're searching all over the board. And again, that's why it's good to have a cutting board that is bigger versus smaller, because the food is going to move around on you. And so just keep your fingers curled. Keep doing that motion. The more you cut, I almost lost one. The more you cut using this technique, it gets easier. Your speed will naturally pick up. Don't try to be in a hurry with this. It just naturally will pick up. Don't try to be like those chefs on the cooking shows that they're just chopping away. They have lots of years of experience with that. All right, I've gotten to the end. Again, that end piece that I don't need, I'm going to put it into my scrap bowl. And then what I'm going to do, again, is feel the side of my knife. I can feel that there's pieces stuck to it. And then I'm going to set my knife to the side, and I'm going to search around. Oh, there's one piece that fell off the cutting board. I'm going to search around on my board, and I'm going to pick up those cucumber slices and put them into my bowl where the food is going. So again, I'm going to reach over, find my bowl. My bowl is on the right of the cutting board. And then I'm going to search around, use that same technique, put my slices in. I thought one fell over here. Yep. So we're going to find that. And so just search all over the board. You may miss a piece or two, and that's okay. You know, cooking is not supposed to be perfect. People with great vision, again, make messes, they miss items, and that's okay. It's fine. As long as you enjoy what you're doing, the cooking process. So now we have our cucumber slices inside of our nice bowl. They look beautiful and they smell delicious. So we could add more cucumbers if we wanted to. It's kind of up to you how big of a salad you want to make. All right, let's practice cutting something that is a little more maybe tricky, unstable, rolls around on you like this big onion. So with an onion, onions usually have the two ends that you don't want to use. I wouldn't worry about slicing them off yet. What I tell people to do with something that's big and round is to try to, number one, cut it in half first, because then that way you're going to have a flat surface that you can rest the vegetable on, and so it's not going to roll around on you, and then it's easier to find that end piece that you're going to slice off. So let's try to do that first. So again, my left hand is going to find about where I think the middle of the onion is. I'm going to try to make my slice kind of in the middle. Doesn't have to be perfectly in the middle though. So I'm going to curl my fingers on my left hand. I can feel that little end piece that we're going to end up cutting off. That's a good point for where the middle is. And then I'm going to grab my knife in my right hand. Again, I'm going to bring it over until I can actually tap the side of the onion and feel it. I'm going to bring the knife up and towards the middle until I can feel my fingers. Now at this point, what you could do is move that point of that knife down and start to slice through. This is a thick onion, so you are going to have to use a sawing motion. Another technique that you could do, once you find where you're going to make that first slice and you have your knife on the onion, is move your left hand over the top of the onion. So the hand that's stabilizing the food, move over the top of the onion so your thumb is on one side, your fingers are on the other side. And this is a nice safe technique because then you know where your fingers are. They're not kind of floating around. You know exactly where they're at. So then once you have that, your fingers positioned, then you still have to get your point of your knife down, and you probably use a sawing motion to get through that onion, especially if it's a thick one. And then once you get to the bottom of the cutting board, then you can move your knife away, set it down in a spot where you know it is, and then use your sense of touch to feel that onion and kind of peel it apart. Ooh, that's a strong onion. Hopefully I won't cry too much. So we have our onion slice. I can feel it now. I can use my sense of touch. And now I can start to peel away some of those peelings on the outside that we're not gonna use. The onion peelings will feel papery, and that's how you can tell, is to just kind of feel around, and if there's anything that's kind of coming off on you, that's what you want to peel off. Especially the very outside layer, that one layer on the outside, that's the really papery part. That's what you want to peel off and try not to eat that part. But now, look, we have this nice flat surface. So now I can set my onion on the cutting board and it stays. It's not going to move around on us. So I'm going to find where that little end piece was, and you're going to tell where it is because it's going to feel like kind of rough. So I can feel that rough part. I'm going to position that to the right side because I want to slice that part off right away. And we're just going to use our same slicing technique that we learned with the cucumbers. My left hand is going to start on the right of the onion, move it in until I can find where I want to make my first slice. I'm going to grab my knife and bring it from the right side until I can actually tap and feel the right side of the onion. I'm going to move my knife in a little bit till I can feel my fingers, get the point of that knife down, and then slice down and move away. And then I'm going to feel, yep, I can feel that scrap. I'm going to put it in my scrap bowl, and I'm going to just use that same slicing technique and to slice the onions into nice slices. So just come from the right side, bring the knife in, get the point down, and slice down. You may not have to use a sawing motion at this point because it's a smaller piece of an onion. So again, we're just going to follow that same technique. Again, you may have to use a slight more of a sawing motion if you're feeling like you're not getting through that onion. If you get to the end of the onion and you're having a hard time holding on to that little piece of onion, you're curling your fingers and it's just hard to stabilize, don't try to cut it even smaller. Just leave it at that point. You don't want to try to struggle to hold on to a piece because then you could cut yourself. So we have our slices here, and now we are going to use our sense of touch to determine if we want to cut them up into smaller pieces. So I'm going to feel these. Some of these pieces are probably small enough for me to just peel apart and put in my salad bowl. And you can decide if you want smaller pieces. I wouldn't recommend tiny pieces for the purposes of this salad because if you start to dice and get too small, the onions could get a little bit mushy. So I'm just using little slices, and I'm gonna just kind of feel. If I do feel like a piece is too big, what I'm gonna do is set it on the board and use my same technique. So I'm gonna hold the piece with my left hand and come at it from the right with my right hand and just bring it in wherever I wanna make that cut, and keep my fingers curled on that left hand and then slice down. And then set my knife to the right side so I know where it is, and then use my sense of touch. So that's what I'm going to do with these onions. I'm going to just kind of feel them and peel them apart. Again, if there's any piece that's too large, I'm going to use that same technique. And then just kind of slice down and then put them inside of my board. I'm just going to continue doing that. Any pieces that are too big, I will be slicing in half. And these techniques are basically ones that you're going to use with most items that you're going to want to cut. Carrots, any type of fresh vegetables, you want to use this same technique. If you don't want to have to spend time cutting items, there are a lot of pre-cut items that you can get in the store. There's a lot of great frozen vegetables and onions that are already pre-cut. I recommend the frozen versus the canned. They're going to be a lot healthier for you. But yeah, you can take plenty of shortcuts. You don't always have to, make stuff fresh. The fresh stuff is better. It tastes better and it's healthier. But there are plenty of shortcuts that you can take if you want to. All right, so I think that's good enough. I'm going to, again, use my sense of touch. Oh, I felt a piece that's kind of like, feels like a little peeling. And I don't know if it's peeling. But if I'm guessing, if I'm wondering like, oh, that might be a peeling, better to be safe than sorry and just remove it and put it in your scrap bowl. But I'm going to use my sense of touch to mix. Anytime you can use your hand to mix versus using a tool, you want to do that. That's the way to go. So we have our onions, we have cucumbers. Ooh, it's smelling good. And you can kind of see everything's just kind of in the bowl here. And again, we're using a great big bowl so that we can easily get our hands in there to mix it up. So we've done our onion. Next, what we're going to do is our tomatoes. No slicing or cutting involved with these, but we are going to use our sense of touch. So I'm going to open up the package, and I'm just going to kind of feel them. And I'm going to feel for any imperfections, if there's anything that's tomato that's too mushy, or any peelings or anything on it, then I'm not going to use it. And these cherry tomatoes, again, are so nice for salads like this because you don't have to cut. You just find your bowl and put them right in. And so that's all I'm doing. And these ones come off very nicely off of the vine. And I'm just putting them in my salad bowl. You determine how many you want. I like lots of tomatoes in my salads. I'm putting quite a few in. I might end up using the whole package. But yeah, again, there's so much you can tell by using your sense of touch. So don't be afraid to get your hands in there. Again, that's why we wash our hands at the beginning of the cooking process. Ooh, this one's a little bit mushy. I just don't know if it's good, so I'm going to put it in my scrap bowl. But yeah, our hands are kind of like our eyes. We can tell a lot about how things are, if they're good to use or not good to use. I think I'm going to put all the tomatoes in this salad because they're just so delicious. Oh, there's another mushy one. All right, so that's that. I put all of the tomatoes inside of my bowl. Again, I'm going to just mix it up with my hands, use my sense of touch to mix it up. Oh, this is looking so good. All right, my plastic, I'm not going to want to use that. That's garbage. So what I'm going to do is put that whole piece of plastic right in my scrap bowl. That's garbage. All right, what we're going to add next is our fresh herbs. So again, this is parsley. You can use any type of herbs that you want. Depending on how you buy them from the store, you may have like a little twist tie on them that kind of holds them together. So just make sure you feel for that and just use your sense of touch to untwist that. And then that can go right into your scrap bowl. So with fresh herbs, they smell so good. So you can use your sense of touch to tell if they're nice and fresh, which this is delicious. Dill is delicious in this salad. Again, cilantro. And then what I'm going to do, if you wanted to, you could cut this up just using that same cutting technique that we learned before, where you hold the parsley together, keep your fingers curled slightly, and bring your knife in from the right until you want to make your first slice, and then slice down. And then you just kind of scrape the knife away. You could do that. What I recommend instead is just using your sense of touch, because sometimes you can miss some of the little stems, and you don't really want the stems in your salad. It won't taste very good. So just use your sense of touch and feel, and then you can break the pieces into smaller pieces if they're too big. And that's all I'm going to do is just kind of feel, break them into smaller pieces, add them to my bowl. Again, they're going to have a nice flavor to them. The summertime is a good time of the year to get some of those fresh herbs from the farmer's market, and even in the grocery store. They have some nice ones. I prefer the fresh ones to the dried ones, but dried herbs are also good as well. They have a nice flavor. So we're just going to add some herbs. You don't have to add too much. A little bit of fresh herbs goes a long way because they have such a nice strong flavor. So don't, I would definitely not put in this whole bunch. That would be a little too much. So I'm going to just add, again, using my sense of touch, my fingers to peel them apart. And then that's it. So I'll put the rest aside. Okay, so I have added my herbs. I'm going to mix them up again, use my sense of touch, use my hands. All right. Yum. Okay, and then you can see how it's such a nice colors, but really nice textures, because we have the cucumbers, the onions, the herbs. It's adding a nice variety of textures. Okay, so we have that. What we're going to do next is to add our garbanzo beans or our chickpeas. I've already opened up this can. It's a nice pull tab. A lot of cans have the nice pull tab, easy to open. If you don't have a pull tab and you do have to open a can, I highly recommend an electric can opener. The traditional manual ones are very hard to line up if you don't have vision. So using electric ones are a better alternative. But I just pulled this tab off. I'm going to put the open or the top of the can in my scrap bowl because everything's going to get thrown away. I've already drained these. You do want to drain the juice off. You don't want that in your salad. A good way to do this is get a colander in your sink and simply pour the chickpeas into that colander and then transfer them from the colander into your big salad bowl. I've already done that part. Again, chickpeas, they're also called garbanzo beans. They'll add a nice little flavor and some good texture to your salad. I'm going to put the whole can inside of here. This is about a 15-ounce can of chickpeas. So I'm going to just dump that right in here. Make sure I'm over the bowl and just kind of shake it a little bit. And then I'm going to put that can in my scrap bowl. I'm going to be throwing that as well, unless you recycle. You could also put in the recycling. And then, again, use my sense of touch to just mix it up. And some more added texture, some great texture and color to this salad with this in it. And then we have just a couple more ingredients, and then we are all done. All right. And then I'm going to grab that little rag that I put at my workstation just because I've gotten a few things on my hands. And this is a nice clean rag, so I'm just going to wipe my hands off. And then I'm going to put it to the left of my cutting board so I know where it's at. So what we're going to add next is our feta cheese. This is already, this is the pre-crumbled kind. I'm going to try to just kind of feel, there should be a little separation, allowing you to pull off that cover. If you want to get the block cheese, the block feta cheese, you can do that as well, and then just use your sense of touch between your hands and just crumble it over into the salad. But again, this is nice and crumbled already. You could use blue cheese, you could use goat cheese, any of those types of cheeses, or no cheese if you don't like cheese. So again, we're going to find our bowl and just dump the cheese right in. This is a 4-ounce container. I recommend something small like that. Feta cheese has kind of a strong flavor for some people, so you don't want something that's too much. But I'm going to use, again, my sense of touch to feel and mix this up. Oh. And we actually don't need a whole lot of dressing on this, I don't think, because it already has a nice flavor. I'm going to grab my little rag, wipe my hands off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my olive oil and vinegar. I'm going to show you a quick little way to mix up this dressing. I'm going to put my knife to the side. So with an olive oil and vinegar dressing, you're always going to want to have more of the oil than the vinegar. So we say you want 3 parts oil to 1 part vinegar. And so a good way to do this is to use some measuring cups. I'm going to use a 1/4 measuring cup and then a 3/4 measuring cup. So let me show you how we're going to do this. I have a little bowl. And you have the bowl on the cutting board. It's a clear bowl. And so what I have a couple of measuring cups, and you'll notice that there are some raised up dots on these measuring cups on the handle. That's a great way to label your measuring cups because it can be very hard to tell what's the 1/4 versus the 1/3. So there's something called Spot and Line Pen. It's a tactile paint, and we sell that at the Vision Forward store. And what I did is on the 1/4 cup, I put 4 dots on the handle. I allowed it to dry, and then I can use my sense of touch to feel those 4 dots and be like, oh, that's my 1/4 measuring cup. For the 1 cup, typically you don't necessarily have to label the 1 cup because it's the biggest one. But if you are still wondering, you could put just 1 simple dot on that 1 cup, and that tells you that's the 1 cup. So we are going to add, again, 1/4 cup of the vinegar and then 3/4 cup of the oil. So what you want to do is you want to hold the measuring cup over your bowl, and then we're gonna open up our vinegar here. Pouring is something that we might get into in another session. There are some techniques for pouring, so I'm not going to get into this too much, but basically what we want our measuring cup to touch where the vinegar is coming out, and just pour nice and slowly over the top of that bowl. My one finger is tucked inside the measuring cup just so I can kind of feel it. It can be hard to feel liquids, but we'll pour nice and slow. Oh, I can feel it there. I'm going to set my vinegar down and then just dump the oil right into my bowl. And then my measuring cup I'm going to set on my tray because I'm going to clean that a little later. So that's our vinegar. I'm going to set that to the side, and then I'm going to do the same with the oil. With the oil, I'm going to use 3/4 cup. So I want to tuck my finger inside. I don't want to fill the oil all the way to the top, just a little bit under. If you get a little too much, that's okay. It's not going to ruin the flavor of the dressing. So I'm going to do the same thing, just kind of pour until I can feel my finger with the oil. Oil can be hard to feel with your finger, so you just have to pour nice and slowly. And again, that's why we say it's okay if you overflow it a little bit. We're just going to dump it, shake it out a little bit. And then as far as seasonings go, I'm just going to add a little bit of pepper. Again, seasoning is another type of training I teach people, is how to add seasonings. So we're not going to get into it a whole lot, but in general, instead of adding seasonings directly to your mixing bowl, you want to pour the seasoning into your hand first. So we're going to do that. Pour some pepper into my hand, and I'm going to set the shaker down, and then I'm going to use my right hand to feel. Oh yes, there's a nice amount of pepper there. And then I can brush the pepper into the oil. Now, that's a general technique for adding seasonings, is to not put it directly on your food, pour it into your hand first. All right, and then I'm going to just grab a spoon real quick. You could use a whisk or whatever tool you want just to kind of mix this up a little bit. And like I said, I'm not going to add all of this dressing to my salad because we really want to enjoy the delicious flavor of the salad. But just, you'll have some extra that you can add to a salad in the future. And then once we have that, I'm going to bring over my mixing bowl and just pour some of it in. You could use your hands. Actually, we're going to get our hands messy when we mix this up anyway, so you could use your hands to feel how much is coming out. And you could even scrape with your hands a little bit to get some of that vinegar out, because the vinegar will sink to the bottom of the bowl. And just sprinkle it on. Again, we're not going to add all of this. And then what we're going to do is use our hands. They're going to get messy and oily, but we're going to use our hands to just really mix that up good. All right. Oh, and it just smells so good. Again, this is a nice salad that you can add your own touch. You could add some other seasonings to it. But again, I recommend very light on the seasoning because you want to taste the delicious flavors of the herbs and the vegetables. All right, let me just wipe my hands, and then I'm going to show you this salad. It looks and smells delicious, and it's a salad, again, that's full of smells and textures and good flavor. So this is what it looks like. So again, a simple salad, a nice summer salad. Take advantage of all the fresh vegetables and herbs that are at the farmers markets or at the stores right now. So that's a quick overview of some of the cutting, slicing techniques, peeling, some of the tools that are available for performing those tasks. Some of the keys are just making sure you have the right tools, making sure you're not in a hurry when you are doing your preparation. Take your time, and then again, really enjoy all the textures and the flavors of the ingredients. If you are interested again in more Cooking Sense classes, stay tuned to our website. We try to put these out every few months. And if you again would like some one-on-one training on cooking skills and also other activities of daily living, get in touch with us through our website. Again, my name is Rose, and I hope to see you at our next Cooking Sense class. Have a good day.